Hi, you are welcome to this module of the UI/UX design training. In this module, I'll be talking about design thinking, introduction to UX design. So, like the name implies, UI/UX. UI talks about the user interface, which is what users see, that's the visual element, when they're interacting with the website or mobile app, as the case may be. Whereas UX talks about the experience they get generally while interacting with the app. This experience includes usability, how the content are placed, and how the product solves the user's problem. So UX design is a very important part when it comes to website development and design. So very quickly, we'll begin with the definition of design thinking. So UX design is just like design thinking, you understand? It's like preparing to give the users an awesome experience when using the product. So let's begin by defining design thinking. What is design thinking? Design thinking is a non-linear iterative process that teams use to understand users, challenge assumptions, redefine problems, and create innovative solutions to prototype and test. I'll take that again. This is a non-linear iterative process that the teams talk about, the designer, the developers, their collaborators, and all of that. They use this process to understand users, challenge assumptions, redefine problems, and create innovative solutions to prototype and test. The design thinking process involves 5 phases. You understand? We have the empathize, the define phase, ideate, prototype, and test. Now I'm going to explain each of these phases. So why is design thinking so important? Design teams use design thinking to tackle ill-defined unknown problems, aka wicked problems, because they can reframe these human-centric ways and focus because they can reframe this human-centric way and focus on what's most important for the users. I will explain this, don't worry. So during the design thinking process, there are some key things that this process helps the team, that's the designers and the developers, to achieve. The first one is they get to understand their users. They get to understand their user, because most times when you are trying to come up with a product, when I'm talking about product, I'm talking about a website or a mobile app. So when you're trying to come up with a product, the goal is to bring a solution to a problem. But you don't just want to assume that there is a challenge. It is very necessary you get to know that users are really going through this challenge and they desire a solution in that light or in that regard. So design thinking, when applied, will help the team know the users, challenge normal assumptions, then they will be able to redefine problems and create innovative solutions to prototype and test. Let's get to work. So these are the 5 stages of design thinking. We have the empathy phase, the define phase, ideate, prototype, and test. I will explain each of these phases one after the other. But before I do that, I want to take note that these stages are not always sequential. What this means is that anyone can come first. Take for instance, ideate can come first. Okay, you should know about Uber or Bolt. So before Uber was invented, I believe people naturally or normally use taxis, but they get to come out of their house, stand at a point, at a spot rather, on the road, waiting for a taxi to come. So the initiators or the creators of Uber, they wanted to solve a problem, which is to make transport use easy for the customers, you understand, whereby they can be in their house, order for the cab, and the cab comes to their location and pick them up. So that's an idea, a great one for that matter. So knowing that okay, they are solving a problem, they wouldn't just jump and start building the app, you understand, but then they have to do the empathy part. I'm trying to say these phases may not just come the way it's looking here, like empathy first, define. No, anyone can come first. That's just what I'm trying to explain. So it is an iterative process that is not always sequential. So I could define the problem first before I start thinking of an idea or a solution. Rather, I could think of a solution before even doing my interview or my research on the users. So let me explain these phases one after the other. Let's begin with empathize. So the empathize phase is where you research your users' need. Are you getting me? It's a time where you research your users' need. So this is done through several questions like that gives insight, you understand, on what your users are. So some of these questions are what, how, and why. I will explain that. So these questions, what, how, and why, helps you observe real users, just like I gave the example of Uber and Bolt. So when the creators came up with the idea, I strongly believe that they had to also carry out research to really know the pain points of real life users, not just to stick to the assumptions that okay, people are going through this challenge or need, you understand. So the empathize phase is where you get to know your users' need and you get to know this by observing them and conducting a proper research. You understand? When a proper research is done, then you can really say, okay, I know my users, or I know my supposed users. So you get to know their pain points, their frustrations, their needs, and with all of these facts, you could come up with a solution that people can complement. You understand? So the next phase we'll talk about. Okay, there are different phases here. We have observing real users, we have conducting photo, we have personal photo and journals. These are different methods. User interviews are done by team to brainstorm and all of that. Just they get to understand, like interview the users so that they can really find out their needs and all of that. So other means of achieving empathy is engaging users like one-on-one, sharing inspiring story, brainstorming and all of that. So the next stage is define. So after doing your research, after knowing your user, after knowing their pain points and their needs, the next thing is for you to state your user's need and problem, like clearly state it. You understand? If your products cannot clearly define the solution they are bringing, then you need to go over that product again. So this define stage is where you state your users' needs and problem. You understand? It's a time to accumulate the information you have gathered during the empathize stage. Then you analyze this information, do your observation and synthesize with it and all of that. Then you come up with a definite statement of problem. So what are problem statements? Problem statements are concise description of design problems. You understand? Concise description of design problems. So I would say it again. For instance, the Uber case study, we already know that okay, people have issues. In fact, let's say sun is shining or rain is falling, you need to go out to stand on the road to get taxi and all of that. It's not really a cool experience. So this is a challenge the users are facing, amongst others. Another one is safety. I believe in Nigeria before now, in fact even up to now, taxis still carry more than one passenger. You understand? So but for safety, for security, they have to bring up Uber and Bolt to give you some form of privacy and convenience. So these products are solving a great need, but then they need to carry out their proper research and define the problem they are solving. So when you have defined your problem, the next phase is ideate phase. Ideate phase is where you get to challenge assumptions and create ideas. You understand? So having gone through the empathy, the define, you've known your problem already, or the problem of the users. The next thing is to start creating ideas that will solve the problem. Now you are ready to generate ideas that can solve the problem. Is a time to brainstorm. Is a time to look deeply into the problem and bring out possible solutions. So after this is done, the next is your prototype stage. This is a stage where you start to create solutions. You understand? This is an experimental phase. This is aimed to identify the best possible solution for the problem. So in the prototype stage is not really the end product, but is something you are coming up that could possibly solve the problem you are trying to address. So as the name implies, prototype, so you are getting something that could possibly solve the problem. So after you are done with prototyping, the next thing is to try testing it. The testing stage, this is where you try out your solution. So in this stage is where you now modify the prototype. Let me read what I have here. Evaluators rigorously test prototypes. Although this is the final phase, design thinking is iterative. You understand? Although this is the final phase, so when you are done with your prototype, you now test it. But then any of the phases you can begin with any of the phases, and you can always modify the outcome and all of that. So overall, you should understand that these stages are different modes which contribute to the entire design project rather than sequential steps. You understand? So your goal throughout the design thinking phase is to gain the deepest understanding of the users and what the ideal solution or product will be. I'll take that again. So the reason for doing the design thinking, or for going through the design thinking phase, is for you to understand and gain the deepest insights of your users. So when you have known their problem, you can now come up with an ideal solution. So in the next video, I'll be talking about the different tools that are deployed during the design thinking process. Different to that, especially for the empathize stage, where you get to do your user research and your interview. So thank you for staying to the end. See you in the next video.